Well, I'm one of the remaining people of World War II veterans, and I was handed a list of questions, but I really would like to have you ask questions as they come up. If you have a thought in your mind, don't hesitate a bit, just answer. Ask them. When and why did you join the military? Well, in 1944, I graduated from high school, and I knew that I was going to be, at that time, drafted. And I didn't want to go to the Army. I knew I was going to have to go to the Army, so I beat him to the punch and joined the Navy. And that was just something that I wanted. And I was 17 years old. I started school as a first grader at 5 years old, which was a mistake, of course, because I was always just a little bit behind my wife Mary, by the way. I was always just a little bit behind my classmates, but anyway, I graduated at 17. I went to work at the McCook Air Base in McCook, Nebraska, and decided that I better get this done. I joined the Navy, and that was in December when I was still 17. January was my birthday, and I actually got in the Navy at 17, but in a short time I was 18. Was an old timer. Yeah, I wanted the Navy. I don't really know why. I just like water, and I figured that I could do a lot of fishing and swimming, I think, more than anything. And I happened to be lucky down the road here, I'll tell you. Our captain was a swimmer. He liked to swim. Well, how did you become electrician's mate on a minesweeper? In boot camp. That was a 9-week boot camp, prepared us to go our separate ways. They gave us an option. We had a chance to select 2 schools that we would like to go to, and they would tell us what school we were going to. I was strong in music in high school, and I put music down, and then as a second I put electrician's mate. Well, they wouldn't give me my first option, surely, so I wound up as electrician's mate. I was sent to Gulfport, Mississippi on a 16-week crash course. They needed us pretty bad in the Pacific. 16 weeks to learn the electrical field, which ordinarily takes you 4 years. But anyway, in that 16 weeks we covered about 1.5 or 2.5 semesters. I'm a little uncertain about that. And came out of that as a fireman. Ordinarily, well, out of boot camp, you're a seaman first class, third class. As you progress through the Navy system, you go second class seaman, first class seaman. I did those while I was in electrical school and passed a test to go to third class fireman, which are the people that work under the deck in the engine rooms, mechanics, the machinists, the electricians, and so forth. I went through the course, passed it by chance, and got to San Francisco. From there, they put me on a troop ship, sent me to Hawaii. I spent a month there waiting for a ship, at which time I peeled potatoes in the morning and wash dishes and so forth, and in the afternoons I got to swim at Waikiki Beach for a month. I wasn't all bad. About that time then, this fleet of ships came in, and in that was USS Heat, the minesweeper, the 220-foot minesweeper, and it's a steel-hulled minesweeper. They made a wood hull minesweeper, which was 180 foot long. A friend of mine in high school got put on one of those as a sonar man. And I want to see what the other questions were. They asked a question about a fleet. Well, the minesweeper could work individually, or it could work in a group of 3 or 4. We weren't actually part of the fleet. except that we were in the 9th Naval District. That fleet was in the Pacific, and that was Admiral Nimitz was our admiral. He was stationed in Lloyd. Swam at the beach every day, I suppose. So we really won't call it a fleet that we were in. We were in a group of ships of minesweepers, and along with us traveled a lot of the time anyway, gunships. And the idea of the gunship was to shoot the mine after we cut them loose and they floated to the top. Now, these mines were ordinarily about 15 feet under the surface of the water. And it was up to us to cut the cables to float the mine to the top and to shoot them and sink them and destroy them that way. Chances are by now, but not for certain, all of those mines would be rusted and on the bottom of the ocean by now and destroyed by the salt water. There were 3 types of mines. First of all, does everyone understand what we mean by sweeping? Well, in case you don't, we pulled cables behind our ship that would cut the mine loose. They usually floated about 15 feet, like I was saying, below the surface. So these cables had knives on them. As we cruised along, the cable would lock in this knife and cut it, and it would float to the top. 1,500 pounds of TNT. Now you can imagine what that would blow up. As far as a ship like ours, evidenced by one that happened, it would hit it in the middle of the ship and both ends would break off and sink to the bottom. So it had that much power. Yeah, 3 types of mines. Okay, there's a contact mine. That's one with a little spike about that long with a glass tip. You break that glass tip in the salt water would react with a chemical and that would ignite the mine. Because that happened very fast. And a lot of ships were lost that way. The magnetic mine is one that when a steel hull ship came along, as you probably learned in physics, steel floating in the water will have a magnetic field around it. It'll form as a compass. So it was a steel hull ship, and as we passed over these, if it was close enough to it, it would attract it, and those tips, of course, would ignite the mine again. And the pneumatic mine, the acoustic mine, I should call it, is one that would explode due to the throbbing of an engine. And as the engine would pass close enough, it would ignite the mine. And it could go out there 50 feet from the ship as far as that goes, but it would still, 1,500 pounds of TNT would knock a hole inside the ship at least. So we had a cable on our ship, and it would draw paravanes. A paravane is shaped like a torpedo, tapered on both ends, and had fins on it. These fins, as you draw through the water, would spread them. And a little bit like he's on a ski rope, and you lean into the water and you go out to the side, it would do that with the cables. And these cables with the knives on it then would be low enough in the water that it would cut the cable that floated the mine under the water, and it'd come to the top, and then either the gunship would shoot holes in the mine, very seldom would we blow one up, and it would sink them anyway. And as I told the other class, this other country boy and I from Nebraska were standing out on deck watching them shoot at the mine, the gunship that was, and that's the first one I ever saw explode. Well, a geyser about 100 feet across, about 300 feet high of water came up, and we were laughing and hollering about that. We thought that was really great, for a show. About that time, the shrapnel started hitting a ship from that mine, and we made a beeline with the gunwale and ducked in and stayed there until the show was all over. And let's see what a question is here. says, where was your fleet located? Well, again, we weren't the fleet, we were a part of it, but our fleet was all over the Pacific Ocean. And our little ship might have 2 or 3 or 4 or more minesweepers, and that depended on the size of the field. Let's see. Go to the next one. What was it like to live on the minesweeper? Well, we had stood watch. That's all I did. Once in a while, we would call the general quarters. I would go up and get on a 20mm gun, the kind that went like this. I shot an awful lot of holes in the air. I didn't hit anything that I know of, but anyway, until I got assigned to a switchboard, which was in the engine room, the aft engine room. That's what I did at general quarters. We would stand 4 hours on duty and 8 hours off duty. It was our job to control the speed of the ship. There was one electrician's mate in the aft engine room, one in the forward engine room. Both of us would hear this control. You've seen them on the ship. They do like this, and they tell you what they want. Tell us to reverse engines. They're coming up on the mine. Okay, it was our job to slow the motor down, the electric motor, and bring it to a stop or nearly to a stop, and then reverse it full speed blank to get away from the mine. So we stood our watch, kept away. We were pretty sure about that. We, as I said, we were 4 hours on, 8 hours off. And then during that time of off duty, we would box, we would sunbathe, we would fish, anything that we so happened we wanted to do. But sleeping was an option we didn't care to because we didn't have to at that time. And this engine room, or the 2 engine rooms, contained 4 800 horsepower engines. They were nearly as high as this ceiling, and a big throbbing engine, 12-cylinder. And they drove generators, which in turn drove the motors that propelled the ship. That was direct current. So we could control the speed of the ship by the amount of power that we transferred to the motor. There were 2 propellers, screws they call them, and 2 shafts that we could parallel into at any time. Then we had 3 100 kW generators and engines, and 2 of them in our engine room, the aft engine room, 1 forward, that just furnished power to the ship. Now, at any time, I'd sure like to have you ask questions. It's a lot easier that way, and ask me things that you'd like to know about.
And tell them about how cool it was in the engine room.
Oh, yeah, well, that, in the South Pacific, not in the South, but in the Pacific, I should say, we didn't get below Amoy, China, or Formosa in that area. But it would get up to, I've seen the thermometer at 130 degrees. And as I told the other class, coming out of school, we had good stiff calisthenics every day just before noon, and I got up to 180 pounds and feel pretty good. Within a few months' time, I was down to 145 pounds just because of the heat of the engine. And it wasn't all that bad. I was young enough I could absorb that. But it was a pretty hot place to work.
You want to tell them about the swimming stories?
Oh, yeah. We had a captain that really liked to swim, and he would call everyone right out in the middle of the ocean, and he'd say, "Stow all sweeping gear." Well, we would pull these paravanes in, and I didn't explain the rest of the paravanes, but anyway, I'll do that later. He'd get us all on deck, and he said, "All right, now that check to see that all sweeping gear is put away." If it was, he said, "All right, everyone strip off and into the ocean." Well, we all had our swim and got our frustrations out, came back aboard. But I was telling him that had I known